Rad. Let's spark one up and fucking talk a little bit. Let's get fucking crazy. Let's talk about some weird ass shit.
I'm devoted to weird ass shit now.
Yeah. We had a consciousness cracking experience last night by watching a movie that Mare recommended called Third Eye Spies, which highly fucking recommend.
Yeah, it's really fabulous because they cater to the normcore.
Right.
And even for somebody like me who's so far from normcore, it'll dispel any lingering doubts you have about psi and psychic abilities and telepathy and astral projection and all these things. Because, of course, when you are attuned to the rest of society that has all of these dogmas and these doubts, they're always still kind of existing in there. And so I love films like that are really catering to a baseline of like, okay, I know that you worship science, so let's go at that angle, you know?
They really earn it by the end.
Yeah.
It's a really good one. It's a movie about ESP and remote viewing and how the CIA was really desperately trying to weaponize it.
Well, they did successfully.
They did.
Yeah.
Oh man, this slick motherfucker! He went through the one spot. I was like, I hope he doesn't go over there. He just slipped right through there.
That's what he can do it though.
Yeah, threading
He's
the
agile.
needle. Threading the needle.
No, so it's, when you go see a show and you're like, wow, this was like this band. They rocked my socks. Like I'm a believer.
Yeah.
This is how I want to get melted. I basically, why do anything else but go follow this band around? Because it's such church. That's kind of how I felt after I saw that movie. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I know what I need to devote my life towards. But then life gets the best of you and you don't follow the band around and whatever it is. But I'm glad that we can talk about it because I think there are people who probably are supposed to be doing more of this work. This remote viewing, this psychic abilities, this tapping in work.
Our friend Joey, amazing guitar player,
Joey
was talking
Rodriguez.
about having some, I already said this on the last one, but not telepathy. What's the, like teleportation almost, but different? What was he talking about?
Where you can't really stay in your body.
Yeah.
Huh.
But anyways, I think he probably has a skill set for astral projection. And it is one of those things like music, like everybody can do it. Everybody has the capacity to, especially if you can learn to trust yourself and dispel some of the doubts, but obviously some people have a major inclination to it. Some people have that as a superpower,
Like music.
Exactly.
It takes me till I'm 40 to fucking figure out how to do this.
Well, you haven't been doing it. That's not fair, Sean.
Well, that's true.
You just got on the guitar like a month ago.
Yeah.
And don't play that much, you know what I mean? Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that there's people that have these skill sets that I don't know what their life must be like or how this is useful. And like, that's kind of why I want to explore it, is because like this could be really useful beyond figuring out what the Russians are up to or, and that's what's so like, I don't know, concerning about our society and the way things are is like, the only way this gets any play and attention is because we need to strike fear in the hearts of people and we need to weaponize these things and we need to figure out how to spy on other people. And it all just seems like rooted in capitalism and paranoia.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, where's the light, bright version of this,
Yeah, but it does seem like everything has to go through that filter in a society, because I have really mixed feelings about just all the LSD trials going on, because I think you're missing the point most of the time when you're giving sacred medicine in a laboratory, and a lot of the sync and the magic and the inexplicable things that happen when you're on psychedelics because of the telepathic nature of it probably aren't going to happen in those sterile environments.
Right.
And so like, yeah, I think when you have to filter it through science and the industrial complex, like it always flattens it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, who was it? Was it Ingo Swann? He seems...
Look this motherfucker
up.
look
him up, because he was an artist in New York, so he's definitely on the other side of the coin.
And like, his art is fucking
he's crazy,
ridiculous.
Dude. Yeah, he's really talented.
Yeah, and he was killed by the CIA because he was too strong, right?
Pat Price.
Oh, we're thinking of Pat Price. Okay.
Ingo, I think he died. I don't know. He died young. But I don't know if we think it's the CIA.
But he was the guy who they were doing this mission to... which planet was it? It was like Saturn or something, and Jupiter, Pluto, or whatever. And he like predicted that there are rings. I mean, I know Saturn
predicted weather up there that we couldn't have predicted.
Yeah, that was against the actual predictions of the weather people that were doing it. They were like, that's not going to be happening, and then it did.
Yeah, so not only questions like how we can transport to any place in the universe
Yeah.
and like inhabit the consciousness of maybe a leaf
Yeah.
on a mountain in Bulgaria or
Yeah.
whatever, but also that you can traverse time and you
Yeah.
could go back to like, so I don't, it's like, why do anything else? Why aren't we not just training everyone to tell us what was going on, you know, in this exact spot, you
Yeah.
know, 20 million years ago?
I think at the deepest echelons of like our highest ranks of society, this is what's going on. You know, that like funny quote about millionaires don't use astrologers to invest what billionaires do. I think it's the same thing with Psy. You know, I think like deep, this is what people are doing.
Wow.
I think it's probably how they found Osama bin Laden. You know, I think it's how like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because even like Jimmy Carter says at the beginning, like, you know, the one inexplicable thing that happened during my presidency is that the CIA reached out to a psychic and she was able to give us the exact coordinates of where this plane went down in Africa, you know.
Totally.
There's stuff like that when you hear him say it, you're like, yeah, I mean, okay, great. Well, then there is power. And
Yeah.
are we not going to tap into power? It's like he was saying the golden goose, you know.
Totally.
The goose that lays the golden eggs, you milk that thing.
Yeah, I couldn't believe too the telekinetic stuff because I was already pretty deep into telepathic stuff by the time this movie came into my life. But yeah, I think that really shook me too because I had a kind of a separation of consciousness and matter. And I also think it's interesting that they take that quote from the Soviet Union about
The Lenin quote.
The Lenin quote about his theory. It's actually opposite way of how I think about things, but with the same conclusion that like consciousness is matter and that's why telepathy exists versus the other way around, which you're like, okay, there's matter and then there's like this consciousness that we're floating around in. And that I think was where the barrier was between that and being able to move the hologram. But I guess that's the whole idea is your consciousness is moving the hologram by imagination anyways.
Well, you had a big experience with this, like at space camp.
I did indeed.
Which we talk about. I just want to
Oh yeah, this is a
blast
good
it
time.
earlier
Yeah,
in the episode.
Let's shout out patreon.com/Church of Chill. We just
Yeah.
got back from space camp where we had an incredible experience and we did a podcast about it that like we can't put on YouTube.
Yeah.
We just can't. It's too magical. It's too hot. It's like
Yeah.
it's too titillating. But yeah, you can maybe talk about that real quick. Like you used psychedelics to get there, and it wasn't even like you were trying to do that. If anything, you didn't want to.
No, and the first time it happened to me, it was really terrifying too. I took 2 tabs with a few other people before I was going to the House of Yes here in a New York City apartment, and it was her birthday, and we were all getting ready, and I remember these tabs hitting me like so much harder than I thought they were going to hit me, to the point that like, you know, maybe 30 minutes in, I had full-blown spiral visuals where everything was just like collapsing around each other around me, you know, and so I'm like, okay, I have to lie down on this couch. And it almost feels like all that I can say to the come up of that did feel like something like psychic warfare. It felt like my consciousness when the other consciousness in the room was having some sort of power struggle for a second that I couldn't put words to or even like visualize exactly. But I then remember like the spirals, the kaleidoscopes as they kind of like close up and open up, them opening up to her room and her closet and her looking through her clothes. Oh. And then I would like pull back and come back here and like try and be seeing what I'm seeing in the room. But it was like I was getting sucked into it. And her magnetic force was almost like more powerful than mine in that moment. And then I was like seeing through her. And I think it was so scary and so unfamiliar that first time. There was no like, let me explore this a little bit more. I could barely even talk to her about it in the moment.
You didn't have a structure for references either.
Oh, no, not a structure for references. Not a structure for integration either, just because of the way that our dynamic played out. But again, yeah, we took LSD with a large group of people, and on the come up kind of a similar feeling of like, whoa, there's this like weird magnetic back and forth polarity, push and pull, and then having that happen again where I was everybody who took this specific vial acid with me. Same kind of an experience where I could look out of their eyes. And in the bathroom, it was more of a feeling too. I remember being in the bathroom and like dropping into Michelle and being like, just not having the same feelings. Like it was a very obviously humbling and ego dissolving experience where it was like, oh, I am everyone. And I got to be everyone for that moment. And any boundaries that I'd put up in between me and them, any judgments, like completely just gone out of the water, you know?
Wow.
And that time I could appreciate it a little bit more. I think it was happening so fast. It was still like, holy fucking shit. And not in my control. Not like, oh, let me do this now. Just like,
let me hop into Michelle. It's like, no, I'm her all of a sudden.
Yeah,
Fuck.
Totally. Totally. I didn't know how it was going to stop. And then once, And then it felt like I was integrating. It literally felt like I was downloading people. It felt like I was downloading everybody that was there on that farm and everybody's intentions and how they came. It felt like I was like feeling their feelings, you know, and in a less intense way than the people that took a vial. But that was my entire come up, was just feeling like I was like literally like USB plugging into everybody.
Wow. So it's like belligerent, chaotic empathy.
Yeah, totally.
Uncontrollable.
Uncontrollable. My father, I remember this, when I was really little, used to call me like an empathetic sponge. And I think growing up, being defensive about being a sensitive person and kind of coming off as a tough person, I really held these things back just from my life and my experience.
And that's not how you welcome them into your life.
And that's not how you welcome them into your life. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think over the past couple of years as well, not to sound too crazy, but I was kind of sold on people talking about the ascension, because it did seem like in the past couple of years with whatever was happening during the pandemic, my feelings were more intense and my connection to other people. And this is said to be part of the age of Aquarius, that we're all supposed to be more connected to each other. And that's why Aquarians are humanitarians, but also disassociative, because they're so connected to the community around them. It's like they need to be independent.
That's Tim Dillon.
It's kind of that nature.
You're describing Tim Dillon.
Totally. And I feel like that. I feel like we're all more connected now, and there was like this need for spaciousness. We had to take this physical spaciousness, and we're all not coming back together, and we're learning like, okay, we're going to be together now, but like in a more intense way.
Right.
And how do you carry that connection and that empathy?
Wow.
Yeah, that feels on the money.
It also feels like a threat to the way things are.
Oh, yeah,
And
totally.
that's why this becomes real sketch real quick in the government's eyes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, let's keep this information away from the people. Let's not point out that pretty much everyone has these skills.
Yeah.
Because, like we were saying when we were watching this movie, it's like, then there's no secrets. Then and there's no judgments.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like everything's out in the open. Here we are again.
It was funny, last night before bed, Mara's like, I really got to be careful what I think. I was like, yeah, you do.
I mean,
Sean's over here feeling it, and I'm like, stop thinking about what she's thinking about.
yeah, it's funny.
No, that is the most like frustrating part about becoming aware of like psychic abilities, and even just being on a spiritual path, is you're like, oh, it like doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't really matter what I do. Like, everybody's checking me on what I'm thinking. Like, you can't fake frequency. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't hide anything. We're now
Yeah.
learning, right? But like, you certainly can't fake where your vibration is at.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I also think like any oligarchs or people that have had such a deep capitalistic mindset to fantasize about living in some like compound away from the rest of like the peasants, which is inevitably like where that thought form goes, right? If you like want to be super wealthy and rich,
Yeah.
right? I think all of those narratives are going to become less and less realistic as we become more empathetic, and you're unable to separate from the suffering of the people around you. You know?
Yeah. If they can just live through your eyes, what the fuck?
Well,
Why'd you do
right.
all this work?
Well, and if you can't separate, like you want to say that you're different from that person, so their suffering is different from you. But I think once you start to be able to feel it, it's not even going to be a choice of whether you want to change it. It's like, I have to change this because this is around me and it's bothering me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie made me a real believer.
Yeah.
And even because I've worked with people who like have these special powers, but there's always like a little part of me of doubt, or, you know, wanting to analyze their ego, tapping into my ego and the reflections there, there was something that was like, okay, there's a purity to this if I trust it, you know, and we are humans with ego, so not expecting this to be an ego-free medium of people traversing this, but also just being like, oh my God, that guy who said he could see the angels and all that shit. Like,
He was right.
He was right, and I should just believe him, because how much more fun is that? And
Instead of always looking for the grift, which is what capitalism trains us for.
Yeah.
So you're looking for the grift. You meet this angel healer. He describes your life. He doesn't know fucking shit about you.
Yeah.
And he describes your life, and he describes your future, and he tells you about the angels that surround you. And you leave there being like trying to punch holes in this guy's story. You meet someone like Gabriel, who's literally not asking for money. He's not asking for anything. And there's this like, hold on, what are you up to? What do you call this, what you're doing?
Yeah,
And
the
it's like,
quantification of everything.
yeah, it's just like, yo, they just fucking nuked the veil. That's
Yeah.
all it is. And
Yeah.
like with a guy like Gabriel, I don't really think he has much of a choice.
Yeah.
You talk to him and he's here and he's really funny and everything, but then all of a sudden slips into light language.
Yeah.
And who knows what he's channeling or what he's tapping into when that happens.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's hard when you don't have like a double confirmation, and that's why those experiences are so important, and so important that they get logged and get expressed out there, about where you can have like I had a psychic or imagination experience, whatever you want to call it, and my friend or somebody on the other side of the planet at the same time had the same thing, and we can have that sort of like validation about it, because it's incredibly isolating, and it's been incredibly isolating for the past like thousands of years, however long society hasn't valued all things not physical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that, all that feminine energy has been demonized, it's been shut down, it's been, not allowed to exist.
You don't think there was a time where this was the way?
Well, I mean, back when science started, science was magic, and then there was a separation by the, institutions between Hermeticism and science, and it's kind of where all the shit went to shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we were much more obviously lunar and mystical before we weren't even on the solar calendar. We used to be on the lunar calendar. So,
Really?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even ever think about that.
Yeah.
And that's a feminine to masculine shift, of course,
Totally.
too. With women being much more synced up to the moon and
Yeah.
men being that like fiery
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
Wow. And the receiving versus the giving. The sun gives the light and the moon receives it.
Totally. Yeah, there's you have to traverse obviously so much more feminine energy when you're dealing with these psychic abilities, because there's so much more chaos in the mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had never really thought about feminine chaos until Sean starts yelling at
Yeah.
me every day. He's like, enough with this feminine chaos. And I'm like, wait, what? I guess we are kind of chaotic.
No. It's a positive thing. It's a positive thing, and I think it rules my life. And I think anyone that would get around me would be like, "Yo, you're extremely feminine." But I do have some masculine qualities where I'm like, "Time to decide. Time to fucking get on a path. Not all the paths. Like, let's.
I love
do
all
this.
the paths.
Let's focus. Focus.
No, thank God for the balance,
Oh yeah.
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 So we're watching this movie, and like it was tempting to just pause it right away and be like, let's start running experiments.
Oh, when I first started watching it, I would be like, I think I told you guys this. I asked my friends to hide stuff, and then I would try and guess where it was.
That's a good way to run an experiment.
How'd it go?
Pretty good. As I said, I think my superpowers are a little bit different than remote viewing, because again, I think I'm too embodied of a person to be good at astral projection and all of that. And the people that I know that are really good at it tend to have charts that aren't very grounded and aren't very embodied.
Yeah.
Super airy people.
Well, that's why I doubt people, because I know that like this capacity of what other people are doing is very far from me. Like
Yes,
I'm not hearing,
totally.
seeing the angels. Like I feel them, but I
Right.
don't necessarily hear or see them. So when
Right.
other people like I hear and see them, I'm like, do you?
Yeah.
You know?
And they change too. Like all mediums that you talk to will talk about how their abilities progressed over the years, and usually in kind of intense ways where their body has to like physically maybe get sick to attune to these higher frequencies, and then they have to get used to the intense, like, oh, I'm feeling this even more extremely now. And now I'm having body symptoms, right? Like we know a lot of mediums have body symptoms. Like all of a sudden you have this really intense stomach ache because your friend has a stomach ache, or, whatever it is. And then you have to try and control all of that. Like
Wow.
all of,
Man, God bless those people.
God bless those people, right?
Yeah, we feel for you.
Yeah.
but there's a reason there's people like that, and I think that they can serve as reminders of our interconnectedness. And again, that just, man, waking up to our interconnectedness on a level like this is so revolutionary.
Yeah.
It's so just fucking changes the game. It really just shows in high contrast that we've become workers.
Yeah.
That we've let them make us workers instead of fucking divine beings who can read each other's minds and be
move,
anywhere.
Move matter.
Move matter.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's how they did the pyramids and shit. I'm pretty sure they
Yeah.
were like, everybody's so bent on technology. I'm like, man, you got the tech though.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you got the tech, like your mom was talking about. You think we're going to be able to change skin color? I was like, yeah, but not with CRISPR.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going with our consciousness, but I don't think it's going to be from foreign objects outside of you. I think it's fucking...
Well, you can already like imagine stuff like that happens in your life, and you could probably like. Were you saying I'm imagining curlier hair and my hair's getting curlier?
It's worked, yeah.
Well,
I'm telling you, Mom, I got this body shit on.
wow. I mean, I like what tripped me out about this movie is I came out of it like just with a better view of this idea I've talked about before, that like there's these ideas out there and they're almost trying to wrangle you as a person.
Yes.
But it's different. But like now I think back on my best ideas because they never feel like mine.
Yeah.
It always feels like something that has always been. And was I just remote viewing a future version of myself, like that had already made American Juggalo?
I always ask the question: is it manifestation or retrocausation?
Yeah.
Are you feeling into the future, or are you then manifesting that timeline? But I can't remember who said, "Do people have ideas, or do ideas have people?" But I remember when I first heard that years ago, and it resonated so deeply for me as an artist, because like you start to write music and stuff, and like your hands go up, you know, like that it's not you because it does move through you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I was saying that about this project we're pitching to Netflix yesterday, and then we watched this movie, and it was like, whoa, oh my God. I was like, Mara, this is trippy. This process keeps going, like to the point where it's like this little idea we had one morning is like now we're pitching it to Netflix. We have this amazing deck. We have all these people on board. Maps. We're talking to Maps after this podcast. Like we gotta it. Shit feels like it's happening, but I'm like, it feels like a runaway train that like I'm not the conductor of this at all. So sometimes it feels like I might have grabbed a future memory. Yeah. And just run with that. And like I think as an artist, it's about like how do you tune your temple to like honor those frequencies and those transmissions that are coming in from like all timelines.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's like a higher timeline trying to manifest higher frequencies of dynamics, because this is essentially what you're trying to do with this movie, right? And it's like that trying to express itself. Like, how do we get there? How do we get these people to come to that deeper level of understanding? How do we get their consciousnesses to meld and accept each other? And
Or like accepting that there's infinite timelines, and let's try to jump to the one that's like a little higher in ascension, where you send love to the previous version of yourself.
But I think that's what she's saying is like these ideas are in those dimensions, and they're like, come on, come up here.
You want to be up here?
You're not the person. Don't you want to be up here? Don't you want to be the guy that made American Juggalo, you motherfucker? Totally. Like, come on, do it, and then it just feels like you have no choice. Like if you're honoring that thing. To what might seem to other people to the detriment of your fucking regular grounded life.
Oh, totally.
You know, like what are you doing? What are you doing in a 3-person relationship? You know, it's like, who had this idea? That's a freaky one. Who had this idea? Who came up with this?
You guys, for sure. I'm not the first fucking rodeo, whatever.
Yeah, but for us 3 to get together in this way, like, come on. Take it to fucking new levels.
Yeah.
Life is too funny, and it makes me just want to play with it, you know, and find the others who want to play with it.
Oh, speaking of playing, we can play a little bit on this podcast.
We made a game for you.
Okay, this is there's a lot of ways to test this.
Yeah, no, we want to implore you to come up with new experiments. And if you think they're good, let us know what you have. You know, if you get good results too, let us know. We want to hear about it.
My first instinct was because I've started singing songs that were in your head, and Cass has started singing songs that were in my head.
It's been a huge part of our relationship is obviously synchronicities. And and it will only compound, I'm sure, especially when we start taking more LSD.
Yeah, and we're being intentional about it.
That's probably what some of these remote viewers who the CIA was tapping into were doing, you know.
That's what Ingo was doing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's the first thing he said to the CIA is like, we got to get LSD involved. And they were like, no, we're not going to do that.
I mean, if you have this tool that can do this. But
my first instinct was like, okay, Mare, listen to a song or think of a song, and I'll try to go there with you. And, you know, there's the classic one of like, I have a number in my head.
Whenever I'm around you guys, I didn't want to freak you out. I wanted to show you this movie first, but I always am high on being like, I'm going to tell you guys what I'm imagining, and I want you to try and see if you can see what I'm imagining.
That's cool.
Interesting.
And I'm going to start doing
that. That's got to be more challenging, because I think remote viewing's like you're tapping into physical matter that viewing into non-physical matter is probably.
It's just a step further.
I'm not quite there yet. Like, let's see if I can.
No, but like it's right there.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
It's okay. It's okay to suck. You know. Yeah. It's okay to fail.
But you know what they do in the movie is they send some motherfucker out to some weird but distinct place, and then they have someone remote viewing and just writing every detail that they can down about where that person is. And a lot of times it's like it 80% matches up. It's eerie.
Totally.
That's what made me a believer, is just seeing these sketches. It's insane.
Well, and especially just from like untrained folks, you know, rooms of just regular people, right?
Yeah. They have seminars where there's like hundreds of people there, and like, you know, only 20% of them don't have the spot on thing.
Exactly. And that's what you can expect too. I think whenever you're asking people to do a new skill, is there's always going to be people that can't get over the doubt in their mind. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Especially with something that's like not even in the grand scheme of perceivability real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what do you think about this being God's work or the devil's work?
Okay,
wait.
we should talk about that, but
But let's do this. So here's
so
our
people
test.
have time.
This is our test with the people. So Cass drew something on here.
With this Sharpie.
With this Sharpie, with a black Sharpie, she drew something on.
Yeah, we're
a
gonna say
white-
it's a symbol. She drew something. It's a symbol.
Yeah, it's a symbol on a white piece of paper that's in this envelope,
It's like, yeah, white craft paper.
white craft paper.
Yeah.
And we put it in this envelope and we sealed it with a kiss. And she did it right before this podcast in this room. So if you're watching this, you can see this.
I was sitting
she
right
was
here,
sitting right
and I
here.
did it right here.
So if you're watching this, tap into that. Maybe pause this, and maybe at the end we'll reveal what this is.
Yeah, we'll reveal in the end.
Okay, cool. So that's a fun way of testing it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Should we reveal it at all?
Yeah, no, let's reveal it
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Tune into the next podcast.
Satan is my favorite topic. It's
Yeah.
never-endingly interesting.
Of course.
It's never-endingly interesting, especially in a monotheistic society. Yeah, and she's asking this question because it obviously becomes part of the film with the public perception. And the church and the Vatican, they're all deeply involved in all of this stuff as well. Because the question of like because then demon possession comes into all of these conversations as well, and exorcisms, and once you get into the metaphysical, I think the paranormal sort of seeps in too, and then you start talking about ghosts, and you start talking about spirits, and I think because of our fear of death and demonization of death in American culture, like ghosts and spirits are then demonized. And so then everything seems demonic and satanic that you can't see. But again, I think it's really just a really deeply ingrained fear of the feminine.
Right.
That like burning the witches thing.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
But do you
To the
think
point where we've structured our society around that. We've made laws, like everything is about that.
The Witch, that movie, that fucking great movie, is actually
Yeah.
about what we're talking about. It's about being scared of the woods, and the woods like represents the feminine, right? And the unknown and the chaos that you can't see.
the thing I'm having hard squaring in my life is that I have this, I guess, belief that power corrupts.
Yeah.
And
I don't even know if that's I think everyone shares that belief with you.
but maybe we should change our belief set system, because with that, I'm like, okay, the power of ESP, like this corrupts, and there is like this concern that someone may think, oh, I'm tapping into where Cass is in her apartment right now, and they're getting an idea of who I am and what I'm doing, but like, do they really know? Can they, if they remote view my experience, really, can I trust that they empathetically tap into like the whole picture of Cass, or does there need to be like a warning with this work that like, I don't know, how did they keep straight, these immense powers and not maybe abusing them?
Can I just say, I think that there's a difference between having power over people and having power over yourself. When you have power over yourself, you're not interested in having power over people. So that's the kind of power that doesn't corrupt. When you have power over people, you're filling a void in yourself, and that, of course, is going to fucking corrupt.
Well, forewarning, the deeper that you get into this, the paranoia does get deeper, because, of course, there are beings that have these abilities that do take advantage of their power. That being said, I think ultimately when you tap into people, it's really hard not to be empathetic, because it's almost like you're uploading to their consciousness. Kind of like when you raise your frequency and you come to new understandings versus like reading a book and learning something. It's almost like you can't even help where it gets you to, But yeah, no. And like silent sound technology exists. Like the government definitely uses a lot of these things negatively. But at the end of the day, like you are God, and you're God of your reality. And like you are always in control of what you let in and what you don't let in. That is your power. And that's always going to be your power. And I think I do have a little bit of an issue how power gets demonized, because then it makes people not want to have any. And the reality is we need good people to have power.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
there's always going to be different power dynamics. And you can experience that on really intimate levels, right? And they're really fun. Like power dynamics are fun. Relationships aren't fun when you don't have them, and you have them in different places with every relationship. Some people, relationships, there's just like someone is like way more powerful than the other, but most relationships that you have exist in different places in your personalities. Some of your personality is more powerful here, and it's more weak in the other person, and you balance each other out, and that's why your dynamic is nice and fruitful and makes you grow and prosper or whatever. Yeah.
Wow. That was good.
That was good. I appreciated that. It's good reminders.
It's crazy because I feel like we're living through this awakening, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
No.
So like, we saw through this whole movie was through the lens of government and CIA and how they think about this stuff.
Totally.
And of course it's just cloaked in fear and everything, because that's what keeps the funds flowing in that way. I see the same thing fucking playing out now. Like they're finally admitting that we know about aliens. There's aliens.
Yeah.
So and everyone knows this. Like my parents know about it. It's on CNN, but my mom's sitting there, she's like, I'm suspicious, and I don't know why. I don't know what they're up to, but I'm suspicious. I'm like, you should be, because, look, they've known about this for a long time, and we made it into a joke that Donald Trump wanted to start a space force, but really, Democrats and Republicans and warmongers everywhere are like, oh, this is it. This is the next place to fucking siphon your tax dollars through your fucking fear and paranoia of aliens, and instead of helping the people, we're going to have a new defense force that, like, you can't even understand.
Which is probably part of the reason that the aliens are here, is because the reason they're around our military bases is because they don't trust us to like have these nuclear weapons, and that's when they started showing up.
That's when they started showing up. It's like
we
figure out the atom bomb, and they're like,
it's such a perfect mirror of like how your fear creates reality.
Yeah,
like you're so scared of something happening that you're like, I need to defend myself against this thing happening to me, that you manifest it happening even harder. You know, you're like, I need to cling to my partner so that they don't leave me.
Yeah,
and then they just like find ways to get away from you because they don't like someone clinging to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that these aliens coming around, if anything, shows me that there's a happy ending to this story, that we're going to figure out this fucking mess we're in, because they are us. Like, otherwise, why the fuck are they hanging around Earth fucking with us? You know what I mean? They are us. They're so clearly where we're headed towards, and probably we're on the super fast track to it now. And they're just like, to me, it's like, okay, they're here as a symbol of some place to go, of some, just the way Jesus was for people, the way all these symbols have become. But like, aliens are that new symbol. And you said something brilliant the other day about how they represent the democratization of spirituality.
Oh yeah, totally.
What do you mean by that?
I just think it's going to be the biggest consciousness cracker probably of the 21st century, because I think it dissolves any reality of the dogmas that exist on planet Earth, because it really just washes everything out of the water, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the way that it opens you up to the rest of the universe, just like how even looking at the stars can do that for you, nothing else will have the capability to do. And I mean, you know, they're going to try, as they've tried with the Space Force, to do the otherization of it.
Yeah.
But as we integrate, just like we're all integrating in this age of Aquarius, and how to learn to like be with each other without judgment, like it's going to do the same thing with aliens. And that acceptance of something that far out of the other, like that's going to radicalize everyone.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to be homophobic or racist or whatever the fuck it is once you befriend an alien. You know what I mean?
You're friends with an alien, but you're like, I can't hang out with my gay cousin because it's just wrong.
Totally. Well, and also, like we're at this beautiful merger finally where science is coming back around to spirituality. And that, again, with aliens is the interdimensional nature of them. And this is all coming out with the UFOs with the government as well, and saying that they have technology that really is unfathomable to the scientific materialists of today, which again is going to bring these spirit and science things together. It's like, now we can't separate them.
And it's just one of those beautiful, humbling moments, like they said in the movie. Like there was a point in physics where people threw their hands up and they're like, "We learned everything about physics." Now we look back at that and like, "You didn't know shit." That's gonna be for everything.
Totally.
Like, yo, we're fucking living in the Stone Age still. That's the way. This is gonna be looked back on.
So when you can. I have so many questions. So when you can inhabit someone else's consciousness, that matter, do you think you're also able to affect matter? Like, do you think like when you jump into your friend who's in the closet, you could be like, I really like that red shirt. Let's pull that red shirt.
I do think that you like, because we have magnetism, I think that like we're always influencing each other. And that's again why we need a healthier relationship with power, because you need to understand you don't just have it over yourself, but you do have it with the people around you. You know, you have influence. And until you recognize that, you're not going to be responsible with it either.
Yeah.
So should we like all be targeting and like putting ourselves inside Joe Biden and like
Damn. That's a bad trip right there. Some mumbling old warmonger fool.
Or you're like, peace is the way.
Yeah, we need to talk to Mars more about her abilities, because she is a channel and she is able to get into consciousnesses that are no longer embodied, which a lot of mediums have that ability. And I think that was another cracker for me too, was being like, oh, I was thinking about consciousness like not being able to be in more than one place at once, which is like a funny idea.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
it's not really location specific. And so I think that's why there is an ability to be able to tap into David Bowie wherever he is or exists, because it's almost like he's a frequency. It's like a specific frequency.
More so than when he was in a body.
Right. More so than when he was in a
And
body.
like we had this freaky thing where Janis Joplin was at space camp.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like I didn't remember Cass inviting her or calling her or anything like that.
She comes with me everywhere.
Oh, okay. All right. She's got that permanent VIP wristband.
Yeah.
Yeah, she definitely came to space camp because she just kept coming up through various people. She definitely swam through you for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fucking wild thing. And to me, I love that. I call on those frequencies. You know? When I take acid, when I fucking, I want to fucking feel Rocky Erickson. I want to know what it was like to fucking be a Texas maniac, when no one understood.
I feel like it's careful what you wish for, man. Like,
definitely careful what you wish.
Look, I think I've talked about it before. I fucking had a ketamine journey where I spent my life as fucking Tina Turner getting abused by Ike Turner and raped, and it was just like,
amazing.
Oh God, it's just one of those fucking things. It's terrifying, but it's just you can't otherize after that. And as freaky as it might have been when you were in the bathroom, maybe too high, and you became Michelle, you raised your frequency. Like now you're not just Mare, and you know it, and you get all that with all that compassion just comes.
Oh, it felt so good. Like. No, it really, the dissolving of judgment in those moments felt so good, and it's just so like, give it all up, humbling, like, yeah. I mean, and I've thought of, I think a lot of people like think of like empathy as a superpower, and I think it can be. I think a lot of times it's just kind of a reflection of your needs not being met at a certain stage, and you becoming aware of that, and then just wanting to give the world back how your needs weren't met. I really think that's where it comes from for me. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm always the person that's like running, like some lady just fucking fell on her ass in Mr. Barry the other day while I was getting a juice. And like, everyone's like, ugh. They're scared of it. Like I like went over and like picked this lady up and whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with everyone? Just because that's what I know I would need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not everyone would need someone to come over and help them up. But like, I know that's what I would need. And you can call that empathy, but I don't know how much of a superpower it is. I think it just has to do with,
well, you're incredibly psychic and able to feel what she needed in that moment too. And some people are able to feel it, but also can't get past the projection of what they need as well. Like just like you said, like maybe they would be so embarrassed they would want nobody to come up to them and just you know what I mean? I'm thinking about a lot of men when they would like fall in public, that would be their reaction, like, oh my God, please don't fucking help me.
Yeah.
And then they're projecting that onto her or whatever it is,
Yeah.
And again, a lot of those narratives are going to have to be dissolved to tap into these abilities, because you have to look past emotional reactions in the moment.
Yeah.
It's almost why I feel like I'm not like pattern wise built to do a lot of this stuff, because I'm so watery and emotional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have to be very airy, non-reactive.
Yeah, it's like it'll be interesting. I wonder if we'll ever get it to a place where like all our charts are uploaded, like our DNA is, like where it's public information, and it's like the CIA is like, all right, we need a really airy person. Let's get all the birth times and go through the astrological charts and figure out who we need as like remote viewing to see what's going on in this cave or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if the CIA is fucking with astrology.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They have to be. If you're saying Goldman Sachs is using consultants for lunar calendar and like this kind of thing, like
absolutely,
that doesn't get talked about that much. You brought that up to us and it fucking blew my mind. But it's also like, duh.
Mm-hmm. No, it's another one of the things when you find out how deep it goes. It's like, of course they want to also make it seem like it's dumb in the public, and that's why it's been a pseudoscience for however long it's been a pseudoscience for. It's because it's again another democratization of power. Mm-hmm. Like, don't let them have that map.
Yeah. So they have to make it seem stupid. They have to make it seem like the most far out. Like that's how astrology has a bad name. It fucking leaves a bad taste in so many people's mouth.
yeah.
And it's like, why?
Well, because of the way that it's been marketed was so patronizing and so like reductive and a like dangerous way of misunderstanding that it does seem fucking stupid. You know, I think like the more that I understand astrology and understand the layering of it, and the more I'm like, oh, I don't understand anything, because that's how astrology feels. The more that you learn it, you know what I mean?
Right.
The first layer of understanding seems so shallow and so non-encompassing, and because again, language is very limiting, and astrology is talking about something much bigger than what language could describe. Kind of like mathematics, and the more that you get deeper into each mathematical class, like things compound on top of each other. But yeah, and there's also just like science, different areas of study that disagree with each other, you know, Vedic and Western, and
That's why I like respect the Buddha or the Dalai Lama, because he's like, yeah, I accept science, and we'll work science into our religion and stuff, but by doing that, he's also like, science has gotten a lot more spiritual, like with quantum mechanics and quantum physics. It's like there was like a moment where it was like, oh, the Dalai Lama accepts science in this rational way, and it's like, no, then science just met the Dalai Lama and was like, well, yeah, I can trust science, because the further we go, the more we'll realize that, you know, these particles that move and quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and stuff that's above my intellectual pay grade.
Yeah.
Reaffirms, you know, this
Absolutely.
spiritual connection that we all have, the oneness, the singularity. It is there, and it is reflected the deeper we look. And
Well, and the power to control reality, almost, because that was the big quantum, I feel like, thing to the public, was like, oh, we're understanding the person running the experiment is infecting the experiment,
I was just going to bring that up.
you know? And it invalidates a lot of experiments, first of all.
Almost everyone. Pretty much everyone.
But
except
then
this one. This one's pure.
yeah, this one. But then it also, it brings in this idea of your ability to change, or, you know, not change reality, but hop to a timeline, and if everything existing infinitely around you. For me, it always shakes me about randomness. Again, because that, I feel like day to day is the thing that comes into my mind as like an excuse to like not face reality sometimes. So you want to write something off as disconnected.
Oh, wow.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's what the human race is infected with for as long as I know about.
Yeah.
Is just, that tendency to otherize, the tendency to write things off is not you.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing yourself a huge disservice, because as a person who was like this until I started taking psychedelics, the thing where you just kind of accept, let everything in, it makes your life like better. It makes it much more magical. It makes it much more chill. You're less reactionary. You're way less judgmental, because you know it's like perfection unfolding in front of you, and you know that's where faith comes in, and like that's where all this stuff starts to overlap.
It really broadens the story of you. I'll do a James Peach thing. It's like you are the universe. You know what I mean? Like, it is all you. So when you broaden your perspective of who you are and what you affect, you know, the stories become like almost so expansive that you can't lock it into like as there's some challenge to the egoic narrative.
Yeah.
You know.
Totally. And the limitations as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of my favorite, I'm just going to keep talking about this movie because I love it so much. So at the end of the movie, they're showing how they use kind of ESP remote viewing techniques to kind of ask the musicians to giving them a prompt and having them create music based on that prompt. And for this movie, it being the movie.
Well, they had an orchestra playing in Sweden, and then they had these musicians in some other location in California laying there trying to remote view this, and they would come out and they would say, okay, they would speak in musical language and try to get it down and perform it. And when they're describing, you know, like the stuff that they're receiving, they're like, I don't know, it's the kind of music that like makes you feel itchy. And this is what's being said in the credits. This is after the movie. This is like a kind of little behind the scenes type of thing. They say, yeah, it's the kind of music that like maybe makes you feel itchy. And Cass just popped up and started like breathing really heavy, and like you could tell she was having one of those holy fuck moments, because
I was really itchy
The whole movie.
Well,
The
the
whole
last
movie, you thought you had poison ivy.
yeah, I thought I had poison ivy, and I was like, it's spreading, but it's spreading too fast, and it's here, and then it's here, and then it's like it was just moving in a way, and then I was like, the wild road my thoughts took me on, like, oh, do I have some sort of itchy disease? What are itchy diseases? You know, I was so confused because I don't usually get itchy. So when something happens to you that isn't like part of your thing, and you don't think of like, oh, you as humans get itchy, like, am I doing too much of a certain drug? Like, what is it? And then they say this thing, and the experience gets so validated. Like, oh, this orchestra is, they're kind of bringing about this like bug-like energy, and they literally say it'll make you feel itchy, and I was like, okay, as someone who wasn't sure how tapped into all this stuff or receptive or open of a person I am, I got so encouraged by that. Because like at first I was it was I guess validating is the word, is that look, you're being affected whether or not you believe in this stuff or not.
I was just gonna say
absolutely. Well, and you can't hide, and you think that you can, in relationships, when you're around people, like, keep things away, and you really can't.
Yeah, joke's on you.
Joke's on you.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love that they started the beginning of the movie too with the I don't know if it's Pat's quote or Ingo's quote about the more that you try and hide something from visible view in the psychic space, the more that it blows up as like a huge beam of light.
Yeah, I love that too. And that's so true, because it's like, think of your worst secrets. It's like, okay, you might be creating this like really deep secret, but there's a beam of light on it, and it's in the psychic space, and people can see it more clearly, because the more attention you put towards hiding it and keeping it in the darkness, it's like, well, there's people who can see in the dark, so joke's on you.
Well, and not only that, you don't even have to see in the dark, because if you're holding a secret that deeply, it starts to crystallize your destiny, and like everything you're all about. We know people like this where it's just like, they come into a room and they're an energetic vortex, you know, and it's like, because they're trying to hold this thing secret, and it's like, you realize everyone knows. We might not know specifically, or do we care to, but like, everyone knows that you're fucking clinging, and it's nails on a chalkboard.
It's honestly why I enjoy singing as an art form so much, and using my body as an instrument. Is like, there is no hiding when you're singing. Like, if I try and sound like somebody else or whatever, like my throat's going to tighten, it's going to flatten. And like, I love that exercise of not hiding and being, you know, and trying to be authentic and find an even and find a middle. And bodies are great.
It's really hilarious the way it plays out in relationships. It's like, you know, when your partner knows something and you're like, I'm just going to fucking double down and make sure they don't know this thing. And it's just like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to just dance around the elephant in the room right now. What do you think?
Yeah, like I'm overthinking about something, but I'm like, I can't burden Sean with this thing I'm overthinking about. But it just makes it worse. And then all of a sudden I like say it like a week too late. And it's like, yo, we could have avoided so many fights if you would just like come out with this thing that literally has nothing to do with him, except me not wanting to stress him out by telling him what I'm worrying about, because I'm like, I can handle this. I can take care of the worry on this one. And then he comes in, he takes a pin and he pops my bubble of worry, and I'm like, man, I could have used you a fucking week ago, man.
Yeah, I mean, like for days I'll watch this with this little furl in her brow, like, and I'm like, what's up? It's like, no, nothing, everything's fine. And then I'll catch you doing something, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm posting the Instagram pictures from Space Camp. I'm like, that's what it's been, hasn't it? For the last 4 days, you've been fucking thinking about that.
But that's not true. That's where I get mad, because you think that you know, and that's where I get like a little more protective of this space, because like, trust me, you think you know, you have no idea the expansive nature of who I am as a person, the ways my thoughts can think, how much I go through. You don't know. So to simplify it and be like, oh, the simplicity is you worry about XYZ, and that's all your experience is like so not true. And that's where I get a little protective of people like tapping into me, because I'm like, you don't fucking know. I don't even know. I don't want to be deduced to something so simple when I'm an infinite being of light.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think, again, like when we're talking, we all have different teams of spirits that want to express themselves through us. And I think Sean does have this weird, intense connection to like high frequency spirits, like Zeus or something.
Oh, shit.
Because he does talk about like the darkest shit that's going on with you and like your worst self, but it is true.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean? It's true. And I like it, the way that he's saying it is saying that it's simplified, but I also think he understands like the complexity of you and like there's other stuff going on.
Oh
too,
yeah, of course.
You know?
Like it's like for me, I'm like, let's just talk about the manifestation of this. Let's talk about the symptom. Let's talk about the most petty surface part of this.
Yeah.
You know, but I know as well as you do, like it goes deeper.
Well, it's so required. Like when you do this with your partner, it requires you guys to both level up, because you're like, you can't just stall in a level of reality where you're worrying because your partner's like, hey, I want to spend time with you.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to have like a little bit of your time, attention, and focus. And if you're always off here, I don't get that. And that's kind of one of the most beautiful things about relationship, is that someone in the physical realm demanding your space so that you can kind of like come more to a present state of being. So like kind of creating, it doesn't have to be love relationships, any kind of relationship where like that requires your presence. That's why music probably is so beautiful. Writing, any kind of artistic pursuit, is because you are required to show up to the moment, and that's enter the flow and take it out of the mind space, where I think that there can be a lot of
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think the flow is bigger than us always, and so it is an ego dissolver in itself when you get into it.
Yeah.
You know.
It parts the cloud of duality.
Totally. Yeah.
That's this realm we're talking about. You know, we were talking this morning about how to get in there.
Is it angels or is it demon work? You know.
To me,
that idea.
It feels
that
very
idea.
angelic.
Are angels the demons? You know.
Same fucking.
Well, can you
thing.
have one without the other? And just knowing, okay, the more I go through the light, the more I work towards anything, the other thing is also happening, maybe in a different multiverse. Like, I'm on the brightest timeline, but the other me is like fucking grinding it out and having a really hard time. And should I embody her so she doesn't have to be that?
Totally.
You know?
Well, and that's why that painting that I want to get tattooed on me about Lucifer getting cast out of heaven is just my favorite, because it's like the moment of distortion or misunderstanding, because the idea of getting cast out of heaven sounds demonic to me in the first place.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Who has the power to do that?
very interesting like it's such an interesting idea.
Yeah.
You know, there's an otherization, and the person that was otherized is the demon. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you got to tap into the kingdom of heaven is within
Yes.
you. And if you believe it's within you, you can believe it's within other people. And the
Yes.
best thing you can do for someone else is tap into that own kingdom of heaven, so that they can see you as a beacon of light of like, oh, that is an option.
Yeah.
That is a way. It's like those monks who meditate. They're holding it down, being like, yo, you cannot be in your thoughts.
Yeah.
There is a way of living outside of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I also think it's cool that they brought in some quotes from astronauts, because the phenomenon of astronauts going into space and then having a giant expansion of their consciousness has been, I think every one of them has said that, right?
Yeah.
And there's one angle on it where it's like, for a short period of time, unlike any other human, they actually got to separate. If space, I think that space does obviously have an equation with gravity. They got to separate from the gravity of the consciousness of the human on Earth, right?
Yeah.
And sort of like almost exist in a little bit more of a separative state.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he described it as samadhi.
As samadhi. And being out there, I mean, sometimes it's like seeing the alien or whatever that happens to them out there that makes them spiritual, but nevertheless, everybody that goes up there, maybe it's just seeing the earth as well, seeing it as a whole, like just the visual of it and having that integrate as a understanding.
The astronauts I've interviewed, that's it's just kind of as simple as that. It's just like looking down on this thing that every story we know, every person we've ever thought of or known, that whole saga took place down in this thing. And like that, like how do you not let that wake you up?
Thank God for psychedelics. I mean, I can probably count probably like 10 experiences of samadhi that I've been blessed enough to experience because of these psychedelic tools.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me an enlightened person, but there are brief moments where you can access that and be in that state of oneness. And wow.
5-MeO-DMT is a pretty, that's a one-way ticket to samadhi for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's for the people. It's the space. It's inner space. You know, you don't have to train to be an astronaut to traverse your inner space, and it makes you want to. Kind of having access to this world makes you want to learn more, so you know how to travel. You know, and how to traverse these waters in a way that's responsible, and not straining your story, but helping you. I don't know. What do you call that? Or swim in the cosmic ocean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, it's just more tools to see yourself, and not just everyone, but everything. And I've taken psychedelics and had the realization that like I was the idea for the Big Bang, and like how much further back can you even go than that? Like that I had the idea, that I in the bigger sense had this idea to fucking start a universe, and it took a long time to play out to get here where I could realize that. But
to separate and explore limitation.
Yeah, exactly.
It really requires like an accepting and embracing of what is and what is happening, and these moments of more challenge. Like, this is such a stupid example, but I'll use it. Like, I was feeling really itchy last night. And it got so bad that I was like, I just need to start with my mantras of like that I'm safe and I'm healthy and I'm whole. And like, it just took me to that place, and I was like this, and I was then even having that moment of embracing like, oh, me struggling with this is requiring me to lean on my faith. And this leaning on the faith builds that connection between me and the divine. And sometimes you need to be challenged to lean on that. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's actually a gift. It's like those folks who, became quadriplegics. Like, they're some of the most spiritual motherfuckers.
Always.
And they'll say it. They're like, look, I wouldn't have become this spiritual if I didn't have the use of my arms and my legs.
Look at the movie we made, American Juggalo 2, about Alexander Perkins. Oh, yeah. Less legs.
Yeah.
Fucking lost his legs at 8 years old, and he's like, I wouldn't change it for the fucking world.
Right.
Made me who I am. And like, he's some juggalo living in Amish country. He's probably the only black dude in his whole town. And like, you go, and if you walk in the room and you feel like you're with Ram Dass, it's intense. And he carries that torch for us. Like, that was his cross to bear, and like, he does it with such grace that I'm like, you look at a guy like that and I'm like, what could I complain about? Like, what the fuck,
Well, that's where, like, Mr. Rogers, I reminded of Mr. Rogers, where he'll go to people on their deathbed and be like, will you pray for me? And they're like, that's weird. You should be praying for me. But it's like, no.
That's what the Pope says to people, too. And they're like, what?
Well,
you pray for me. And he's like, no, it ain't like that.
Like, you're closer to God, and you're more connected to the divine, maybe when you're on your way out or when you're on your way into this experience. This has been a really... Should we reveal the thing?
Yeah, let's reveal the symbol.
Before, if you haven't done this yet,
just pause here.
Just pause it here. I, with this Sharpie marker, did a symbol right here on white cardstock paper about this size, and then we put in this envelope. I went over it a couple times, so maybe with your mind's eye, see if you can drop it into the space of what you see.
You hold it up to this one. Yeah, there it is.
Cool.
It's a triangle with hearts around it.
Yeah, it's a triangle with 3 hearts around it, with the base of the heart pointing towards the triangle. So if you are just listening,
if you nailed it, send us your drawing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you had any experience of any kind of ESP, remote viewing, telepathy
we'd love to
with
hear
us,
about it.
We need to hear about it, because I feel like those are our people.
And if you're bored, my favorite thing to do is read NDEs. That's another fun way to become a believer of things, is weird synchronicities with NDEs with people and
near-death
OBEs.
experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the fucking... I think there's a whole channel on YouTube. It's pretty raw. It's just videos. Some of them feel like they're from the 80s. And it's just people talking about their near-death experiences. And we should do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, like people have met their kids that haven't been born yet.
That's cool.
Oh, yeah. Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, there's some cool ones.
Yeah.
There's some really cool ones.
Yeah, I've heard about experiences like that from ayahuasca. I think with psychedelics, you stumble into a lot of this stuff, and it doesn't make sense. And
and it's hard to integrate because the society has no language for it,
nor acceptance.
Yeah,
nor acceptance. Like, where would you talk to someone about this?
Even when that shit went down like a year ago with me, none of my friends, like the couple people I told, were like, okay, Mayor.
Chill out. Let's take it down a level.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we like to speak to the choir.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you find our people, and it's just going to get more and more interesting and magical, because this partly feels like it plays perfectly into our calling of community and merging with what we maybe have once otherized, and just becoming everyone, and growing our mycelium, being
And
strong.
helping people
like that.
tap into their own power.
Yes.
Fuck yeah. I
'Cause
mean,
you're
that,
very powerful.
Very.
yeah. Yeah, you're very fucking powerful.
Yeah, and you have influence whether you want to or not. So use it wisely.
Yeah.
Use your thoughts wisely.
Yeah.
That's a good note to leave it on. Thanks, Mare. Thanks, Cass.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Patreon.com/Church of Chill. There's a little treat there for you if you want to join up. And join our Discord and fucking let's get to know each other.
Yeah,
for
let's
real.
run experiments.
We're going to start running experiments on the Discord, so this will be fun. Peace, love, and magic, y'all.